Respected soul listening right now, if you have ever felt that quiet frustration of knowing you were meant for more, yet wondering why your goals keep slipping just out of reach, stay with me, because in the next few minutes, your understanding of success is about to change forever. Let me start by telling you something deeply important, something most people never hear clearly enough. You are not broken. Your dreams are not unrealistic. And the reason you haven't achieved every goal you've set has nothing to do with your intelligence, your background, your age, or your circumstances. It has everything to do with how your brain has been conditioned to operate. And the beautiful truth is this: once you understand a simple, easy four-step process, achieving goals stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a natural outcome of who you are becoming. I want you to imagine for a moment that your mind is like a highly advanced navigation system. It's designed to move you toward whatever destination you program into it. But here's the problem most people face. They never clearly program the destination they hope, they wish, they want. But hope is not a command to the brain. Desire without clarity is just noise. And so the mind does what it was designed to do. It defaults to familiar patterns, old habits, and emotional comfort zones. Years ago, I met people who had everything going for them: talent, education, opportunity. I want to be successful, or I want more money, or I want to be happy, but the brain doesn't respond to vague instructions. Imagine putting an address into a GPS that says, somewhere better. It doesn't know where to take you. Clarity is kindness to your brain. When you choose a goal, your mind immediately asks a silent question: is this safe? And is this familiar? If the answer is no, the brain triggers fear, doubt, and procrastination, not because it wants to hurt you, but because its primary job is to protect you. Understanding this changes everything. Resistance is not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that your brain is doing its job. I remember working with individuals who said they wanted financial freedom, but deep down they associated money with stress, conflict, or loss. So every time an opportunity appeared, their mind subtly pushed it away. Until those emotional associations were brought into awareness, nothing changed. This is why clarity must go beyond words. It must include emotion and meaning. When you clearly decide what you want and why it matters to you, something powerful begins to happen. Your reticular activating system, the filtering mechanism in your brain, starts noticing opportunities, ideas, and connections that were always there but invisible to you before. It's like buying a new car and suddenly seeing that same model everywhere. The world didn't change. Your focus did. And here's the key insight most people miss. Deciding is not the same as wishing. Deciding is a commitment to see yourself as the kind of person who achieves that goal. The moment you decide, you are no longer someone who hopes. You are someone who is in the process of becoming. This first step is not about pressure. It's about permission. Permission to want what you want without guilt. Permission to dream without apologizing. Permission to say, this matters to me, and I am willing to explore what it would take. As you listen to this, I want you to gently ask yourself one question, without judgment, without forcing an answer. What do I truly want to experience, create, or contribute in my life right now? Let the answer come from a place of curiosity, not obligation. That answer is the doorway to everything that follows. Because once clarity is established, the mind becomes an ally instead of an obstacle. And in the next part, I'm going to show you how to align your inner programming so that your brain starts working for you automatically, even when you're not consciously thinking about your goal. Once you've made that clear decision about what you truly want, something subtle but powerful begins to happen inside you. Yet this is where most people unknowingly lose momentum. They get excited for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, and then old patterns return. Doubt creeps in, motivation fades, and they begin to wonder, what went wrong? What went wrong is not the goal. What went wrong is that the subconscious mind was never brought into alignment. With that decision, you see, your conscious mind sets the goal, but your subconscious mind runs the behavior. It's been quietly programmed since childhood, through repetition, emotional experiences, and observation. And here's a truth that changes everything. The subconscious does not respond to logic or words alone. It responds to images, emotions, and repetition. That means if you want to achieve any goal with ease, you must teach your brain to see it as normal, safe, and inevitable. Let me explain this in a way that feels human and real. Think back to when you first learned to drive or ride a bicycle or even use a smartphone. At first it felt awkward. You had to think about every move. You made mistakes. But over time, through repetition, it became automatic. You didn't need motivation to do it anymore. Your brain had created a pattern. Achieving goals works the same way. The second step is creating a clear internal picture of your goal already achieved and emotionally rehearsing it until your brain accepts it as familiar. This is not fantasy. This is mental training. Elite athletes do this. High-performing entrepreneurs do this. Neuroscience supports this. The brain does not fully distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Both activate similar neural circuits. I've seen people change their lives simply by changing the images they repeatedly replayed in their minds. One person constantly imagined failure without realizing it. Every time they thou et about success, their mind followed with images of embarrassment, loss, or disappointment. Once they consciously replaced those images with new ones, progress accelerated. This step requires gentleness, not force. You're not trying to convince yourself of something unrealistic. You're teaching your brain what direction to move in. When you imagine your goal achieved, don't just see it. Feel the relief, feel the pride, feel the calm confidence of knowing you followed through. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. You might notice resistance at first. Thoughts like, this feels silly, or who am I to imagine this? That resistance is not failure. It's old conditioning surfacing. The brain is simply comparing the new image to past experiences and saying, this doesn't match what I know. That's okay. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates comfort. Comfort creates action. What's fascinating is that once the subconscious begins to accept the new image, your behavior starts to shift naturally. You begin to say yes to things you once avoided. You begin to notice opportunities you once ignored. You begin to act in alignment without forcing yourself. This is when goal achievement feels easier, not because the path is effortless, but because you're no longer fighting yourself. I remember someone who wanted to start a business but was paralyzed by fear. Every time they thought about it, their body tightened. Through repeated emotional visualization, they train their mind to associate business with creativity, service, and growth, rather than risk and failure. Within months, actions that once felt terrifying felt normal. The brain is a prediction machine. It constantly asks, what should happen next? When you repeatedly show it a clear, emotionally charged picture of success, it starts predicting actions that move you in that direction. That's alignment. But visualization alone is not enough. This brings us to the third step, the one that transforms intention into momentum. It's about building small, consistent actions that reinforce the identity of the person you're becoming. In the next part, I'm going to show you how tiny daily actions, when aligned with your brain's wiring, create massive long-term change without burnout or overwhelm. Once your mind begins to accept your goal as familiar and possible, something very important shifts inside you. The struggle is no longer about believing. It becomes about embodying. This is where most people think they need massive action, dramatic change, or relentless hustle, and this is where they exhaust themselves. The truth is far more compassionate and far more effective. The third step is aligning your daily actions with the identity of the person who already achieves that goal. Not someday, not when everything is perfect. Now, in small, intentional ways. Your brain does not change through intensity alone. It changes through consistency. Tiny actions repeated daily tell the subconscious, this is who we are now. Think about this for a moment. You don't become confident by waiting to feel confident. You become confident by taking small actions that a confident person would take, even when your voice shakes a little. You don't become successful by waiting for the perfect opportunity. You become successful by acting like someone who follows through, even on the smallest commitments. The brain loves evidence. Every small action you take in alignment with your goal becomes proof. Proof rewires identity, and identity drives behavior. This is why setting massive goals without changing daily behavior leads to frustration. The mind keeps saying, this isn't who we are because there's no daily evidence to support the new identity. I once watched someone transform their life simply by changing how they started their mornings. No dramatic overhaul, just one intentional habit that aligned with the future version of themselves. Over time, that one habit created momentum. Momentum created confidence. Confidence created bigger actions. And suddenly, what once felt impossible felt inevitable. Here's something deeply freeing to understand. Your brain does not require perfection. It requires progress. Missing a day does not erase your growth. Quitting does. When you approach action with compassion instead of pressure, Consistency becomes sustainable. This step is about asking a simple question each day. What is one small action the future version of me would take today? Not 10. Actions, not overwhelming plans. 1. When repeated, these actions compound. The brain begins to trust you, and when the brain trusts you, resistance decreases. You may notice something surprising during this phase. Old habits may surface more strongly at first. This is not regression. It's the brain testing whether the new pattern is real. Stay gentle. Stay consistent. Every time you choose the aligned action, even imperfectly, you are strengthening a new neural pathway, and something else begins to happen. You stop waiting for motivation. Motivation becomes a byproduct of movement. Action first, emotion second. This is how high performers operate, not because they are special, but because they understand how the brain works. But there is one final step that brings everything together. The step that determines whether your progress becomes permanent or temporary. It's the step most people ignore, yet it's the one that locks the change into your identity at the deepest level. In the next part, I'm going to show you how to reinforce success, reprogram setbacks, and make achievement feel like a natural expression of who you are, not a constant battle. By this stage, something inside you is already different. You may not have reached the final destination yet, but you're no longer the same person who began. And this is where the fourth step becomes essential, because without it, progress can quietly fade. This step is not about doing more. It's about integrating who you are become. The fourth step is consciously reinforcing progress and reinterpreting setbacks so your brain learns the right lesson. Your mind is always learning. The only question is what it is learning from your experiences. If you don't choose the lesson, your old conditioning will choose it for you. Most people unknowingly train their brains to associate effort with disappointment. They work hard, hit a setback, and then tell themselves a story like, see, this never works for me, or I knew I'd fail. That story becomes the memory, and memory shapes identity. But the truth is, setbacks are not signals to stop, they are signals to adjust. Your brain remembers emotional endings more than logical explanations. So when something doesn't go as planned, the meaning you attach to that moment matters more than the event itself. If you consciously say, this is part of the process, this is feedback, this is growth, your brain encodes resilience instead of fear. I've seen people make extraordinary breakthroughs simply by changing how they spoke to themselves after a difficult day. Instead of replaying what went wrong, they acknowledge what they did right, even small wins, especially small wins, because what you appreciate, your brain repeats. Celebration is not arrogance, it is reinforcement. Every time you acknowledge progress, your brain releases chemicals that strengthen the neural pathways associated with that behavior. You are literally teaching your mind, this is worth doing again. Theft is also where patience becomes powerful. Not passive patience, but trusting patience. The kind that understands that transformation is happening beneath the surface before it becomes visible on the outside. Just like roots grow before a tree breaks through the soil, your internal wiring changes before external results appear. You may notice moments when old fears resurface. That doesn't mean you're going backward. It means you're expanding beyond what once felt safe. Growth always feels unfamiliar at first. The difference now is that you don't panic, you don't quit. You observe, adjust, and continue. Over time, something extraordinary happens. The goal no longer feels separate from you. It no longer feels like something you're chasing. It feels like something you are expressing. This is when achievement becomes sustainable, not because life is perfect, but because you've built a relationship with your mind that supports you. This four-step process was never about forcing change. It was about understanding yourself deeply enough to work with your brain instead of against it. Clarity creates direction. Emotional rehearsal creates alignment. Small actions create identity. Reinforcement creates permanence. And now, as you sit with this, there's one quiet question worth asking yourself. Who am I becoming as I move toward what matters most to me? Because if you've listened this far, something inside you already knows the truth. You were never meant to live on autopilot repeating. Same year over and over, quietly wondering what might have been. You were meant to grow, to expand, to stretch into versions of yourself you haven't fully met yet. And the most powerful part is this. You don't need to become someone else to achieve your goals. You simply need to remember how you were designed to work. This easy four-step process was never about chasing success outside of you. It was about aligning what you want with how your mind actually functions. When you choose with clarity, your brain listens. When you emotionally rehearse, Your subconscious begins to cooperate. When you take small aligned actions, your identity shifts. And when you reinforce progress with compassion and meaning, change becomes permanent. There will be days when you feel unstoppable and days when you feel uncertain. Both are part of the journey. The difference now is that uncertainty no longer controls you. You understand it. You work with it. You no longer wait for confidence to appear before you move. You move and confidence follows. Remember this deeply. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on time for the moment you decided to become intentional. Every goal you hold matters because it reflects who you are becoming, not just what you are trying to achieve. So, as this video comes to a close, don't rush back into distraction. Sit with one clear decision, one intention that feels honest and alive in you, and then take one small action today that aligns with it. And because you have to prove anything, but because you respect the life you've been given. If you ever doubt yourself again, come back to this truth. Your brain is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally once you learn how to guide it. And step by step, with patience and belief, the life you've been working toward will stop feeling distant and start feeling like home. You are capable of far more than you've been taught to believe. And today, you begin again, not from scratch, but from experience, awareness, and quiet strength. Thank you for being here.